Hey everyone, welcome to today's video, and today is day 9 of 100 days of AWS. And if you are here and you haven't subscribed to my channel, I would recommend you to do so that you are notified of new videos that I'm uploading every day in this series of 100 days of AWS. And in today's video we are going to talk about what DNS is and how it works. We are also going to see what are the type of DNS records, and we are going to create our own DNS zone in Amazon Lightsail. So let's get started. First and foremost, you can think of DNS as your guide in the internet. Now, whenever your browser needs to reach to a website, it tries to look for the DNS server. And how it goes to that DNS server, this is the most important part. So I will just explain you with this diagram, which is an excellent resource on Wikipedia. You can go and read it. Now think of it, I've already explained you what domain name, what are the parts of the domain name. Now the key part of that was the TLD, that's the top level domain name. So you have a top level domain name server, for example .com, that holds all the information of where to look for that website. For example, if I booked a website called 100daysaws.com and it is the TLD is .com, so all the details would be stored in that authoritative TLD server of .com. Now, what happens when you query for this 100 days of AWS? If no intermediate system has a detail, it will try to reach this authoritative TLD server. All right, it will hold the record and it will provide to you, and it will take time for the first time. But in this process, what will happen? Your ISP or your internet service provider, your local router or your router at home, and your system will cache these records, so that next time you visit, it would be done in a jiffy. You won't take much time to load that website for which a DNS record has already been cached. So this is called kind of a DNS relay. And how it works, every DNS record is cached for some you can say predefined amount of time. And that's why, if you change your DNS server or if you change your hosting server, it sometimes takes time for it to update through all the DNS servers across whatever has cached your website. So that is how your DNS works. So DNS is just like a phone book which stores a mapping of your IP address and your domain name. So that domain name can be mapped by the IP address, or specifically if I say of the record. So if it is a server, it should be an IP address. If it is a kind of a different domain name, it would be a different domain name. Now let's see how DNS works. All right, so I have Wireshark here and I have created a filter of DNS, and I will just go to my terminal and I will use a command line utility in Linux that is called dig, or domain internet grouper. And I will just try to do it for youtube.com. And once you do it, you will get the IP address, which is a type of a record, and this is the IP address. Now if I show you the Wireshark message, you can see the first is the DNS query, and this is a standard query, and it is looking for a record of youtube.com. And then this is a response from my local router or my Wi-Fi router that this is the IP address 142.250.70.206. And in the detail, you can see this is the type A, class of internet, and address is this one. This is the response, and then this is the question. So you can see there is a couple of you can say DNS queries being done by Mozilla. So this is how your DNS works. Now let's see what are the type of records in DNS. So there I have given a complete list of records in my notes, but the key are these, I would say first 4 or 5. Now first and foremost thing, if you are using an IPv4 address, then if you want to map it, you have to create a record. So A is the address record. In case of IPv6, you are using 4 times A. Now IPv4 address has 32-bit address, and if you multiply it by 4, you have IPv6 number of you can say bits, 128 bits, and that's why you write it around with 4 A's. So this is for IPv6. Then you have a canonical name which maps a domain name to another domain name or another URL. All right. MX is for mail exchange. You can create a mail server. Text record is for any arbitrary text. Name server is to create any other name server with your domain name. And then you have some additional or advanced you can say type of records like start of authority, SRV, pointer, TLSAs, CA. These are for certificate, security, and other purposes, which I have mentioned here in my notes. Now let's go to Lightsail and create a DNS zone and see how you can create these DNS records. If you are not seeing any domain name and you have booked it from any other website, then you can use it to map that domain name into your account. So for example, I can create a DNS zone of 100 days of AWS.com, and you can see these are the name server that I need to update in the registrar where I have booked my domain name. But I haven't booked this domain name, so I'm just showing you how to use it. Now you can use it directly to assign it to any of the resource. Like for example, you can use the domain name directly with any of the instance, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to create a raw record using DNS records. And when you go to this DNS records, you can see there are multiple type of records available. So the first is a record. So with a record, you can create any, you can say, as I've mentioned, from domain name to IPv4. So if I go to my Lightsail account and I can see this is my IP address, I will just copy and paste it, and it would be www.100daysofAWS.com, and I will click on save. So this is one of the entry. If I want to create an IPv6, that is 4 times A, and I will copy the IPv6. So I'll go to my instance and I can get the IPv6 address, and I will just copy this IPv6 address and paste it, and this would be my IPv6 address. The next is your CNAME. CNAME is canonical name, which means if I want to map abc.100daysofAWS.com to abc.com, I can do that. I can use any arbitrary URL here, which would forward the traffic, which would actually map the traffic from this domain name to the URL. So I can use the canonical name. The next is the text record. So this text record is used for several purposes. For example, verifying your domain name by Google, by Bing, any other service, or you can use it to include some additional information. For example, this is for verification, and you can include some text. This is Google verify is equal to 123. You can also use that wildcard of star, and you can map it using for all the domain names. Now then you have the MX record. So MX is your mail server. For example, I can have mail server 1, and I can get the detail here. For example, mail.aws.com. Now you can use a mail server created by Amazon SES, and we'll see in an upcoming video how to use Amazon SES with mail server with a Lightsail, and how to map this mail server. And then you can put the endpoint here so that you can use the mails to set, you can use your domain name to send emails as well. The next is your NS record. So NS is kind of a name server. For example, you can have NS1, and you can map it to any other name server. So this is similar to what you see here. You have some name server. So if you want to use your domain name as a name server, you can use this NS record. Then you have SRV records. Now SRV is very important. So you can map it for any service. For example, I can put a priority and wait. And for example, this is my container 1. So if you're using containers, sometimes your containers would be spin up in a different port. So this is a test service.com, and the port would be, for example, 5000. So whenever you want to map any kind of domain name to any arbitrary port other than 80 or 443, then you have to use SRV record, and I can click on save. So these are the type of records that you can use with DNS inside Amazon Lightsail, and almost it is similar what we see in Route 53. However, the interface is much more easy to understand and learn. So I would recommend you to go ahead and try it out and understand how to create these records. If you have a domain name, I would request you to play with it with these DNS records. If you have any questions or queries, you can ask me in the comment box or reach out to me directly, and I will try to resolve it. And in case you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and I will see you tomorrow in another video of 100 Days of AWS.